Today we'll be talking about a very important character from the Jujutsu Kaisen universe. From the first time we were introduced to Gojo in the manga, it was pretty obvious that he was an absolute powerhouse. Other characters even talk about him like he's some sort of god, and honestly, they aren't too far from the truth. Gojo's birth alone has a massive impact on the balance in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe. From the moment he was born, cursed spirits had to get stronger to balance out the effects of Gojo's existence. In the first volume of the manga, Gojo's profile was provided, and it was clearly stated that he can do anything he tries, and because of this, he does his best not to get too involved in anything. It's crazy when you consider the meaning of that statement, because it's quite a bold one. The creator was saying he can do almost anything he tries. Instead, he made it very clear that he can do anything, and this claim can't be fully understood without a proper breakdown of his abilities. Although the limit of his powers hasn't been explored, this doesn't mean that he can't make mistakes from time to time. This also means that he can't always save everyone he wants to. We get a very good picture of this in the manga arc where he was forced to fight Jogo, Hanami, and Koze in a tight space full of civilians. Even though Gojo eventually won the battle, he wasn't able to fight properly while keeping all the people there unharmed. This just goes to show that he isn't perfect after all, and speaking of imperfections, let's take a look at Gojo's origin story. Despite being born very talented, he still had to train very hard to create and master the incredible techniques we have seen him display throughout the series. To get a better idea of his growth, we'll refer to the flashback arc during his fight with Toji Fushiguro. There, we saw him getting bullied by his opponent initially because he hadn't mastered his techniques at the time. Something incredible to remember is that even though he hadn't learned how to use his techniques to their full potential, he was still considered the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. Gojo achieved the impossible even though he was limited by his lack of experience, and that just goes to show how unstoppable his character can be. Talking about his cursed energy, it's no news that Gojo is ranked as a special grade Jujutsu sorcerer. He is so powerful that even Geto, who is another special grade sorcerer, admitted that he could wipe out all of humanity. In the manga, we even saw a scene where Gojo came to fight Geto and he didn't bother fighting back because he knew it was pointless. Another example to show just how powerful Gojo is was the time when Yuji Itadori asked him if he could defeat the legendary Ryomen Sukuna. Gojo simply responded by saying that although it would be a bit draining, he would undoubtedly defeat the King of Curses. With that being said, it's no doubt that this guy is basically invincible. However, we're not here to go on and on about how he overpowered Hanami and how he fought 1,000 transfigured humans at the same time. Instead, let's get right into what every Gojo fan wants to know, and that is his Jujutsu abilities. On that note, let's start with Limitless. The power is basically defined as the ability to manipulate and distort space, and this is the power that makes the Gojo family so powerful. The first time we saw him use this was in his battle against Jogo, and it was quite a sight to see. Breaking it down a little further, this power can be manifested in different ways, and there are 3 standard forms. The first standard form is called Neutral Limitless Infinity, which he uses at all times. This form is what allows Gojo to stop objects or things from hitting him, as we have seen in the series. This space or barrier between Gojo's body and other entities is called the Infinity, and it's safe to say that it makes him untouchable. This is also the reason that even rain doesn't touch him unless he allows it. The Infinity can only be nullified if the user disarms it, or when domains are activated. The second form of Limitless is the Strengthened Limitless Blue, which is activated when Gojo amplifies his technique with cursed energy. This creates a magnetic field that attracts everything around it. The effect of this move was seen when Gojo attacked Juzo with it, causing his body to almost explode because it was attracted to the point of attraction Gojo created around him. This technique requires a lot of concentration and cursed energy to work, and its power is determined by the amount of cursed energy Gojo uses to perform it. However, he also has to be careful so he doesn't get sucked in power the magnetic force. This means that he first has to create a point of attraction and then stay a safe distance from it so he doesn't get affected by the magnetic field. Regardless of the safety measures, there were times when Gojo had to use the strongest form of this technique. For instance, in his battle against Toji Fushiguro, Gojo used Cursed Technique Lab's Maximum Cursed Energy Output Blue, which was basically a move to wipe out everything that he could see with his eyes to avoid any sneak attacks. It's important to remember that Toji was a force to be reckoned with by other Jujutsu sorcerers. He was deemed the sorcerer killer and even had the power to wipe out the entire Zenin clan if he wanted. He even defeated a notoriously cursed spirit called Dagon, who gave two grade 1 Jujutsu sorcerers, Nanami and Nobito, a tough time in battle. So to imagine Gojo taking out Toji in a very short time after he almost died, it's just another example to prove why Gojo is the strongest sorcerer. Moving on to the next form of Limitless, that's when we talk about Reverse Limitless, which is in some ways the opposite of the Blue Limitless technique. Now, it's important to note that most Jujutsu sorcerers use negative energy or curse energy, but this technique allows Gojo to use positive energy, which repels instead of attracts. The instance where this technique was displayed was in Gojo's battle against Jogo, when he used the Reverse Limitless to blast him miles into the forest. Gojo also calls this technique the convergence and divergence of infinity that repels anything in its path, and this is why Jogo was practically paralyzed against it. The power of this technique is also twice that of the Limitless Blue, and that explains why Jogo was totally annihilated in the battle against the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerer. Now, we have seen how devastating the Blue and Reverse Red Limitless can be, but what happens when Gojo decides to combine these techniques? Well, the result is an insanely powerful colliding Limitless Purple technique. Because it should be impossible for the forces of attraction and repulsion to merge, this technique is also called Imaginary Limitless. That's just a name though, because Gojo was able to do it. The effects are also in no way imaginary, and the opponents Gojo used it on can testify. Gojo first used this move against Toji. It was so fast that he didn't even stand a chance against it. Another thing that makes Gojo stand out so much among the other Jujutsu sorcerers is that he is the only person that can use this technique. Sure, there might be someone else out there that can use Limitless, but judging by how difficult it is, it's safe to say he's the only one. There is something else that makes Gojo so special, and that's his second ability, which is called the Six Eyes. The fact that Gojo is the first person in over 100 years to be born with both Six Eyes and Limitless. That's already very impressive, but that's not all, because to show just how rare and overpowered Gojo is, there can never be more than one sorcerer bearing the Six Eyes at the same time in the Jujutsu universe. This is probably the reason why Gojo can use the Six Eyes to explore the full potential of Limitless. Another big advantage of Six Eyes is that the user can never run out of cursed energy, since it allows them to see cursed energy from afar, which is very efficient. This also allows Gojo to decipher and analyze the shape, size, and form of objects even without seeing them. That probably explains why he can wear a blindfold and still bully some of the toughest antagonists without breaking a sweat. However, the main reason he does wear this blindfold is because he has to. Because of the insane powers of Six Eyes, Gojo has to cover his eyes so his brain doesn't get overloaded with the amount of information it's receiving. He only uses the Six Eyes when he needs to use complex curse techniques like Hollow Purple, Domain Expansion, and Reverse Curse techniques. Another thing worth mentioning is that Gojo does most of this while running on autopilot, and this started in the Hidden Inventory arc. When Toji stabbed Gojo with the Inverted Spear of Heaven, he focused all of his energy to activate the Reverse Curse technique. This causes the Six Eyes to take over and automatically heal his brain from the effects of using Limitless. As a result, since then, the Six Eyes always find a way to heal his brain and body, making him invincible and giving him an infinite supply of cursed energy. At this point, we have seen so much evidence to confirm why no one can be ranked higher than Gojo in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe. However, there's still one thing we haven't talked about, and that is his domain expansion. Gojo's infinite domain is both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Whenever someone finds themselves in Gojo's infinite void, it seems like they're in the center of the universe, but they are actually in the core of Limitless. They get numb inside, but in truth, they can feel everything, but it's happening at such an incredible rate that their minds and bodies can't process it. This overload of information paralyzes the person until they eventually die. The true concept of this domain is that it makes whoever is inside think about a single thing over and over again, that they can't think of anything else, and this causes them to get stuck until they die. This domain is so lethal, and after civilians were exposed to it for only 0.2 seconds, they had to be rehabilitated for 2 months before getting back to normal. The only way someone can be saved from the domain is if Gojo touches them. The infinite void can also nullify other domains, as we have seen in episode 7 when he neutralized the domain of the special great curse, that is Jogo. Apart from these abilities, Gojo also has the power of teleportation under certain conditions, and it's no doubt that he's insanely battle inclined. All of these special traits and abilities are what have made some even call him a god in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, which is crazy when you realize that he hasn't even reached the limit of his powers. With that, today's video on Gojo comes to an end, and after seeing everything we've talked about, there shouldn't be anyone who thinks Gojo isn't the most powerful being to ever exist in the Jujutsu Kaisen storyline.